tomatoes. How can you grow the best tomatoes in your little environment?
You know, and you tell people that you grow a garden, and they say, "Do you grow tomatoes?" Because you're right. That is what they want to know. So you want to start with good starts. So you want to start.
You can start with seeds. If you don't want to start with seeds, you want to start those 6 to 8 weeks before your last average frost date. Many of us have surpassed that time frame, and if you haven't started them, you can start them still. That's not a problem. You put the seeds directly in the ground as a child, and you didn't have starts whatsoever. No. But if you are not going to start your seeds indoors under a Happy Leaf LED grow light, in Root Maker grow trays, or air pruning trays, you can certainly get starts. Now, that's going to be more pricey than it has been in years past. That's just the way the world is functioning right now. But there are some things you want to know if you're going to buy starts from your independent garden center.
Right. And there's no wrong way, but it's good to think about how you are going to start your tomatoes, or how you're going to grow them. So when you go to the garden center, you do not want to you're going to feel tempted if you see a start that has flowers on it, or even like a little tomato growing or something. You're going to think, oh, this is going to do really well. It's already growing tomatoes, already has flowers. Wrong. You don't want the ones that have the flowers on it or the little tomatoes.
We're talking about the little starts. We're not talking about the 3 or 4 or 5 gallon pots with the cages built in around them that they're like $35 or $40 and they've got giant tomatoes hanging off them. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the actual individual. They're in 6-packs. They're in 4-inch pots, 4-inch individual pots. Those. You're going to see that more late May, early June. 50% off, 90% off. Please, we'll pay you to take these type of situation, and the plant's 3 foot tall and got a bunch of tomatoes on it. So don't do it.
Some garden centers might not even discount them. They might just have those out there, and it's gonna be May, end of May, early June, and you're going to see them. And maybe you're just looking for a few more plants to fill an area, and don't take those. Throw some bush beans in that spot and move on with your garden life. Your garden life.
Yeah.
So you want to look for, so when it comes to time of planting, you want to find a spot that has full sun and well-draining soil.
Time of planting is after your last average frost date. It's different for every area, but you want to do your research and find that out, because let's say the 25th of May is when you always plant tomatoes. And the 25th of May to the 1st of June shows nighttime temperatures hovering around 40 to 45 degrees. Tomatoes don't like cold soil. They don't like to be in cold environments. So we have waited until the 1st of June in our area to plant before, because of those cold temperatures. And it's just better to wait. That extra week's not going to hurt you. Now, on the other hand, if you're typically planting the 25th of May and you are at the 15th of May or the 10th of May, and you look at the long range forecast and all it shows is 60 at night and 70 in the day, harden those plants off if you've started them. That's a process of acclimating them over a 7-day period from indoors to outdoors. There's many great references online on how to do that safely and properly so you don't kill the plant. If you buy them from your garden center, you don't worry about it. They've already acclimated them for you. But if your long-range forecast at the 10th of May is wonderful, don't wait until the 25th. Put them in the ground then. We've planted them as early, I think, as the 14th of May, because that long-range forecast was showing so much promise, and it worked out very well. We got them in, 10, 15 days earlier than normal. So that's what you want to be aware of, that temperature. Ambient temperature, yes, but soil temperature at root zone. You plant these things deep, typically at 3/4 of the way up the stem. So you're looking anywhere from 4 to 8 inches, maybe 10 inches deep. We've planted them with a post hole digger before. We planted them with the Pro Plugger, and we get them down because hair follicles on the stem can and will produce more roots. And a plant that has more roots is a more vibrant plant that picks up more nutrients. So, use a meat thermometer. Go to Waltons.com, use a meat thermometer, get them from there. We'll talk more about Waltons in a moment. But you want a digital meat thermometer. It works great to get a accurate, fast read on what the soil temperature is.
Right. So you want to think about all of that. And then once you have them planted, you want to do a few things. One is that you want to remove the lower leaves about 6 to 8 inches. Now, when you first plant them, you don't want to necessarily move 6 to 8 inches because that might be the height of your plant. But as your plant grows, you want to keep removing the lower 6 to 8 inches of those leaves. And for one reason is because it prevents early blight. And early blight is something that lives in your soil. It's there's good and bad things in your soil, and early blight is one of them. And your tomato plants catch it or are affected by it because of water splashing up onto the leaves. So if you remove the lower leaves of the plant, it helps prevent that. And there's a few other things you can do.
You can mulch. You use straw, chemical seed-free grass clippings, leaves, shredded paper. Some people will use a weed barrier or a plastic around the plant in order to prevent the splash up. 90% of the problems that your tomato plant is going to face will be because soil is splashing up on the plant, whether you're watering it or it's raining. That's why when you water, we recommend a drip system, or from dripworks.com, or the tree diaper from treediaper.com, to absorb the water and put it right at the root zone.
Well, yes, you can. You definitely want to consider irrigation, some sort of irrigation.
It'll make your
system.
life.
Yes.
Let's just pick numbers, and these are not accurate numbers, but let's say you invest $100, $150 in irrigation this year, which eliminates you having to go out and water. It's on a timer. You're actually conserving water because you're not overwatering or underwatering, and your plants are happier because they are hydrated. And plants, from what we have found, grow really, really good when they're hydrated properly.
Correct. Just like humans, we all need water, and plants, as when they have consistent watering, they're going to do their best to fight off disease, or they're going to be at their best to fight off disease, pests, things like that. So another thing you can do to help with the early blight is to take a handful of whole grain cornmeal, yellow whole grain cornmeal, and put it at the base of your plants at the time of planting. So you plant your plant. You can take the cornmeal, put just a handful, sprinkle it around the base, and then you would put your mulch over it. And then what this does is it helps prevent that early blight that's in your soil, because it has a beneficial bacteria called trichoderma. So we're using one bacteria to fight another, basically.
Now, this is not I put yellow whole grain cornmeal down and I don't have blight ever again. This greatly reduces the amount of the early blight that can get up on the plant. We've safely, conservatively figured 75 to 80% reduction in early blight overall. Now, we've done this since 2014, and it is amazing the transition from 2013, when at the end of the season we had stems and fruit hanging off of it and no leaves because the leaves have all been ate up by the early blight, to 2014 to present day, where up to the time of that first frost, the plants are lush and green and have a lot of foliage on it and photosynthesizing and continue to produce tomatoes. So it makes a tremendous difference. And we've had people, when the world used to allow people to go out and talk to each other, we would go to expos and we would give a talk on how to grow the best tomatoes. We would inform people, use yellow whole grain cornmeal, and they would come back the next year and say, I thought you two were nuts. Maybe you are, but not on this. I did the whole grain yellow cornmeal and had the best tomatoes I've ever had.
Right. And it's 100%
Now,
true.
we may be nuts, but we know a few things about this.
Yes. They're not mutually exclusive. So with that being said, you do want to keep in mind that consistent watering, using mulch, and the whole grain cornmeal, and trimming the lower leaves of the plant is going to give your tomatoes the best chance.
Absolutely. Whether you're growing cherry tomatoes or full-size beefsteak, and supporting your tomatoes, you got to get them off the ground. Whether you're using cages or a Florida weave, something to elevate the plant off the ground. As soon as you do not put your plant up off the ground, you just allow them to sprawl on the ground, they're a vine, you will lose 50% of your production, because we did that. We tried that. Putting a one row on the ground and the other row elevated, everything on the ground, the fruit rotted, got worms, got insects. The stuff that was elevated, we were able to harvest. So whether you're using a cage, homemade cage, store-bought cage, Florida weave, some type of device, you got to get them up off the ground. So that's how you're going to have successful tomatoes. Now, true enough, we've covered a lot in just about 10 minutes. This is a topic in which we need about 3 shows for in order to really cover all the details, but we will cover other tomato techniques throughout the season here. But you can always go to our parent website, which is the WisconsinVegetableGardener.com, and put in the search bar tomatoes, and there's a lot of videos that go in more detail than what we were able to cover here on the radio. Well, talking about Walton's, we talked about getting a meat thermometer from Walton's. Walton's has a lot of things. They have everything but meat.
Yeah, so we're brought to you today by our sponsor, Walton's. Listen, we know you care about where your food comes from. You preserve, you freeze, and whatnot. But think about the meat. At Walton's, you can get all the equipment, seasoning, supplies to make sausage, jerky, and any other meat product your way to your high standards. Last night, we had some delicious steaks that Joey made, and we used the Walton's Ultimate Steak and Roast Rub, and it was super tasty, great balance of flavors. I would recommend, even if you're like, I'm not going to make this jerky, but I do like seasonings.
Take some time and go to their website and search through all the seasonings and kitchen accessories in which they have that maybe you're not a butcher, but you can definitely benefit from what they have available.
Yeah, they have burger presses, which Joey has made some excellent burgers with those. And they also have their website, meatgistics.com, which is a community to find all sorts of information how to utilize and make the best meat products. So that's waltonsinc.com and meatgistics.com, and you can use code GROW22 to save 10% off your orders of $50 or more.
Why not use the coupon code and get a lot and save quite a bit?
For more information, please visit the WisconsinVegetableGardener.com.